Have you ever wondered why, as soon as you move past that very first pentatonic box shape, you kind of get lost and you noodle around and you hit a bad note and it's kind of embarrassing, right? Personally, as an intermediate, this was one of the many problems I had on the instrument, and it's something that inspired me to kind of get better at the guitar and go to music school. Now, having gone through that experience, I got myself a nice little degree. I got myself to the point where I could teach pretty decently well and get some good results for my students. I even got to the point where I could play the guitar well enough to get paid for some gigs, which was quite nice. But I know many of us watching, we don't really have the time and energy to go through that entire process just to get better at the pentatonics, right? So what can we do to improve our ability on the pentatonic shapes as simply and efficiently as possible? To fix this, I'm going to show you two exercises we can use to help give us a larger and better understanding of the pentatonic shapes all across the fretboard. And these exercises are also going to double up as exercises we can use to practice our picking speed and also picking accuracy. So it kind of doubles up and kills two birds with one stone, which is quite nice. And then once we learn these exercises and we're comfortable with the pentatonic shapes, we're going to look at how we're actually supposed to use every single position in order to improvise across the fretboard without kind of falling into our old habits and only ever playing in position one, right? We're going to figure out how to go through all 5 positions without getting lost. Just a quick heads up, when we go into the improvisation exercise towards the end of the video, we are going to need to know some triads in order to understand how to get the most out of all of these pentatonic shapes. Again, if you don't know triads, don't worry, we're going to go over the basic ones today, so stay tuned for that. But if you are interested in learning every single triad on every single string as simply and efficiently as possible, I do have a triad masterclass service. There'll be more information about that in the description and the pinned comments. But anyway, let's crack on with the video. I want you to imagine your pentatonic shapes like 5 tropical deserted islands out there in the middle of the ocean, like a really nice paradise, right? If you went to stay there for a couple of weeks, you'd probably want to explore all 5 islands. It would be quite boring if you were just stuck and limited to just one island. The thing is, it might be kind of scary to go from island to island if the only way to travel was to swim through shark-infested waters. It would be quite kind of scary, frankly, and also kind of annoying to have to get wet every single time and get soaked just to travel around. So what if there was a more convenient way to travel across those islands? Surely it would be a lot nicer if we could build bridges between every single island. Well, it turns out we can actually build bridges with our pentatonic shapes. These 5 pentatonic shapes are like those 5 desert tropical islands I just talked about. And this first exercise we're going to do is going to encourage us to build bridges across every single shape. So this is how it works. We're going to play the first position of the G minor pentatonic scale. And then we're going to get to the highest note, right? Once we get to the highest note, we're going to slide into the highest note of that second position and then descend down the second position of the G minor pentatonic. Now we're at the lowest note of the second position. As soon as we get to the lowest note, we slide into the lowest note of the third position, and then we ascend up this one. Now we're at the highest note of position 3. We're going to slide into the highest note of position 4. Now we're at the lowest note of position 4. We're going to build a bridge and slide into that lowest note of position 5. Now we're at the highest note of position 5, and again build another bridge. Slide into that highest note of position 1 again. And this is a really good exercise to kind of practice using all your pentatonic shapes in combination. Once you get good at like playing these and kind of practicing them slowly, you're gonna want to get to the point where you can combine all of them together into one exercise. This is a really good exercise to warm up on the guitar and also practice your kind of like picking speed and picking accuracy as well. Like put a metronome on, play this to a metronome. It's going to level up 2 areas at once. 1, your understanding of the pentatonic shapes, and 2, like your ability to kind of like pick accurately and also fastly on the instrument as well when you play to a metronome. But yeah, ideally you want to get to the point where you can play through all those positions like this. So now we have a nice little exercise. It's going to help us bridge the gap between each of these positions, each of these islands, if you will. But what if there was an even more efficient way to move across all of these shapes or islands? Sometimes it can be quite long if the only way we know how to travel between shape to shape is to get to the lowest or the highest note of the string. It's like if the only way to travel from one island to another is to go from the very southern part all the way to the very northern part. It's kind of like a very long journey. This is where the islands or pentatonic shapes would benefit from a bit more infrastructure. We could put some roads on these islands. So how do we put some roads in our pentatonic shapes? Luckily you asked that question. We can do this exercise to kind of encourage some more kind of movement from position to position. So we're going to start with just playing position 1 and 2 first, but we're going to break it down into just 2 strings at a time. So this is how this works. I'm going to play position 1 on just the E and the A string. And then I'm going to go to position 2 and just play on the E and the A string there. So combine them together. And then once I go through those 2, I go to the A and the D strings of position 1. And then the A and the D strings of position 2. And then once I do that, I go to the D and the G strings of position 1, and then position 2. Then I go to the G and the B strings. So this kind of encourages you to move from shape to shape right next to each other, which is going to be really useful for when you're improvising and kind of branching out. It's going to teach you where the next scale shape above is for every single string. So again, keep practicing that. Get to the point where you can kind of do it quite fast. It kind of inspires more kind of movement from side to side with these scale shapes, rather than only ever going straight downwards. Right? We want to have the ability to use the whole scale all the way across the fretboard. And again, once you're comfortable with doing that with position 1 and 2, try doing it with position 2 and 3. So I could go like... And again, do that with like position 3 and 4 when you're comfortable with that. And then move on to position 3 and 4 and 4 and 5 and 5 and 1 and so on and so on. And get to the point where you can do it with every shape across the fretboard. So keep working on those exercises where we build bridges and roads between each of the pentatonic positions. Again, you want to get used to the idea of playing across all the positions on the fretboard rather than just up and down one shape like this. And when we do that, kind of new opportunities open up to us on the fretboard, and suddenly we can start exploring the whole area available to us rather than just staying on one island. But the thing is, you might find yourself with too much to explore. Sometimes it can become quite overwhelming when we have all these shapes and we don't really know what to do with them. How do we make music with all the shapes rather than just falling back into our old habits with the very first box position? Again, wouldn't it be more convenient if when we're exploring these islands, it would be a lot nicer to know where we are with some landmarks? Usually when we're kind of moving around and traveling between somewhere new, we look out for landmarks, right? Something we can recognize and identify to tell us where we are. The thing is, in our pentatonic shapes, we do have landmarks. And this is where the triads are going to come into play. So we have, for G minor, we have a root position triad like this. We have a first inversion like this. And then we have the second inversion all the way over here. The thing is, these are hiding inside of our pentatonic box shapes. So around position 1, that's where that root position triad is going to be hiding. And again, in between position 2 and 3, so I have... and then position 3 over here. We have this first inversion minor triad. That's hiding inside of there. And again, in between positions 4 and 5, we have this second inversion as well. So position 4, we have And then position 5 over here. We have this guy over here, right? So we want to use these triad shapes as landmarks to kind of help guide us around these pentatonic shapes. So whenever you're playing a phrase, what I want you to do is play around the pentatonic shape, but always end on that triad point. It's kind of give you like a kind of waypoint, somewhere to target inside of these shapes, rather than kind of just endlessly getting lost and noodling everywhere. So if I put on this little loop over here, I'm going to try and go through every single pentatonic position, and I'm going to give myself a way to end every phrase by aiming for those triads closest inside of that pentatonic position. The thing is, there's actually triad shapes hiding in every single position on every single string, all the way across the fretboard. So if you want to learn more about how to unlock the ability to use these triads everywhere, check out this video here. It's all about how I've been helping my students simply understand how to use triads and improvise through chord changes quite melodically. So again, if you're interested in taking my triad masterclass and leveling up your triad game, again, check out this video over here. You can see the kind of results my students have managed to achieve.